Good morning, kiddos. Let's go over the homework from lesson 31. Please make notes, make changes, whatever you need to do so that you have this study material to look at as you are preparing for sixth grade. We see in the example we have a rectangle, a parallelogram, a trapezoid, and a square. We see that we have these two little lines side by side that look like railroad tracks. Those are parallel. That's the symbol for parallel. And then you have the upside down T, and that is the symbol for perpendicular. So let's look at number one. It wants us to write the names of the shapes in each section. So we have parallel sides only. That means that you will only have the shape that looks like a railroad track, like this, which is parallelogram, and trapezoid. That's all that should be written right here. Then you have parallel and perpendicular. That means it will have both the upside down T and the railroad tracks in the corner of the shape, which is rectangle and square. On number 2, which group from problem 1 does each shape shown belong in? So this shape right here, which is a type of parallelogram, belongs in parallel sides only. And then we have this shape, which is like a diamond. It's parallel and perpendicular sides. And number 3, we should have drawn a shape something like this that does not have parallel or perpendicular sides. And then we move right over here, and it says to solve, and it goes over the definition of a right angle, an acute angle, and an obtuse angle. Number 4, you needed to write down the R's and the O's and the A's for these corners. So right here we have A, O, O. All 4 of these are R's. And then we have O, A, O, A. On number 5, write the name of each shape from problem 4 where it belongs in each group shown in the table below. So right angles, I should have gotten squares because it says write the name. It didn't say to label these as A, B, and C and just write A, B, C here. I got a lot of that. Please follow the directions. And then on this acute and obtuse, we should have had trapezoid and parallelogram. If you don't know that this is a trapezoid at this time, please take that note. Write it through the middle, write it under it, over it, wherever you can. But I would like for you to write trapezoid. And right over here, I would like for you to write parallelogram if you don't know that. Please be honest with yourself. We all have room to learn and stretch our minds. Please do so. Then we come down to number 6. This is where we do get to write A, B, C, D. It says, where does each shape belong in the Venn diagram below? Write the letter of the shape in the section that it belongs in. So for acute and parallel sides, we have D and A. In the middle of all 3 of these, we have C. And for right angle and parallel sides, we have B. Now let's turn to page 351. And let's go over these answers. So this was talking about the shapes in a hierarchy, whether it be the tree or the flow. Please pay attention to this. This is so important for future geometry understanding of the shapes and how they fall into a family. So for number 1, it says to fill in the blanks. Quadrilaterals are both. It's polygons and plane figures. So how we got that is that we come up here and we look right here. We have to remember that as we go down the tree or to the right in the flow chart, that it gets more specific. A quadrilateral can't be a rectangle and a rhombus, but it can be a polygon and a plane figure. So we have number 2. A square has 2 sets of equal parallel sides and 4 right angles. Where in the hierarchy should squares go? And please explain. So if it has the parallel sides and the right angles, this is where we would have it at the main bottom. We would have it looking something like this. And then I would have my square right down here. Please excuse my little edges on that one. Let me try this again. Can't get the right one clicked. Here we go. This. It would go beneath rectangles and rhombuses. So to write that out, you could say squares should go below rectangles and rhombuses and should be connected to both of them. A square falls into both categories. Something along those lines. I don't expect that to be word for word verbatim, but I expect it to be something like that. It definitely should say below or beneath both rectangles and rhombuses and connected to both of them. Let's look at number 3. Mark an X in the column if the shape always has that property. So parallelogram has 4 sides, 2 pairs of parallel sides. A rectangle has 4 sides, 2 pairs of parallel sides, 4 right angles. And a quadrilateral has 4 sides. Number 4. Use the table in problem 3 to make a flow chart. Remember, this is where we go from most general to most specific. As we go from the left of the flow chart, moving right, we get more specific. So we have quadrilaterals, because see, it only has one property. We have parallelograms, which only has 2 properties. And then we have rectangles, which it has to have all 3 properties to be a rectangle. Number 5, where would you include squares in the flow chart in problem 4? Now, if we're looking at problem 4, and this is all that we have, we would make an arrow right here, and we would put squares to the right of rectangles. Then number 6, and you can read that if you want to, but I'm going to keep right on moving on. Number 6, fill in the Venn diagram that shows the relationship between rectangles, squares, and rhombuses. Explain what the diagram shows about squares. So remember, right over here we had rectangles and rhombuses, and squares were connected to both of them. So we, in the Venn diagram, we have to make it so that squares are in the middle of rectangles and rhombuses, and it shows that it has all the properties of both rectangles and rhombuses. Please turn in your workbook to page 353. Number 1, look at the flow chart. We have trapezoids, parallelogram, rhombus. Which statement is true? Circle the letter of all that apply. I know that during the school year, the word all often got many of you. It was easily overlooked since it's a little word, but you should have circled both A and D. Rhombuses can be classified as trapezoids. Yes, because the trapezoid is most general, and remember, we moved to more specific. So as we move toward the specific, everything to the left of the shape, that shape is also considered, but not always to the right of it. So for example, A parallelogram is not a rhombus, but a parallelogram is a trapezoid. And then we have the reason that B is false. It says trapezoids, right here, have all the properties that a parallelograms have. And we know that is false because it's to the right. Parallelogram is to the right of it. That would mean that it is more specific. C, parallelograms can be classified as rhombuses. Once again, it's to the right, so no. And D, rhombuses have all the properties that parallelograms have. Yes, it is to the left of it, so yes. On number 2, you should have drawn something like this in your book. The Venn diagram should look something like this. Number 3, squares have all the properties that trapezoids have, and all quadrilaterals are polygons. You should have written something along those lines. On number 4, we should have had C, and Dinah thought that the categories at the bottom of the diagram are more general ones. It's just the opposite. So at the bottom it's more specific, she thought more general. The general's at the top, specifics at the bottom. And then we have number 5. Possible answer, no, this shape does not have all the properties of a square. It would need 4 right angles to be a square. So squares should not be in the hierarchy. And that is all of the homework for lesson 31. If you need to discuss something further, please let me know. I will go into a private chat with you and we will discuss those problems together. Let's get ready for lesson 32.